Nature of thinking. Thinking involves using logic, intuition, and problem-solving skills to arrive at a solution that is both practical and satisfactory. It is an essential aspect of our everyday lives, from making simple decisions to tackling complex challenges. Before going to the details, please remember to subscribe this channel. Do watch other videos in the channel, share it with students and those who love learning psychology. Thank you. Nature of thinking. In this video, we will learn various nature of thinking. Like thinking is a series of symbolic process. It has steps, it has purpose, hindsight and foresight in thinking. Then thinking involves abstraction and overt and covert thinking. First one, thinking is a series of symbolic process. C.T. Morgan regards thinking as a sequence of symbolic process. It makes use of symbols, percepts, images, and concepts. The symbol represents or stands for objects or events in the environment. So, the thinking involves a representative process. We think of one thing, that makes us think of another thing, and that makes us think of some other thing, and it will go on. In this way, we manipulate the world internally with the help of symbolic process. And this makes use of memory, imagination, and reasoning of problem solving. Let us understand this with an example. Consider you are trying to plan a trip to some place. For that, what you will do? You may start by creating mental representation of the different aspect of the trip, like the destination, the transportation, accommodation, and activities. You mentally manipulate these representations by asking yourself questions like, what is the best way to get to the city? You need to take a flight or a train or by car. Then what are the most interesting places to visit? Then how much will it cost to stay in a hotel? And as you continue to think about the trip, you may create new mental representations that combine and reorganize the original representations. And you may come up with the idea of taking a train to the city, then staying in an Airbnb and visiting a museum and a local market. These new mental representations can be thought of as symbolic combinations of the original mental representation. And finally, you use these symbolic combinations to make a decision and you plan your trip. Next is the thinking. Our thinking has steps. Woodworth mentions the following steps in thinking. First one, orientation towards a goal. The solution of a problem is the goal of thinking. Thinking is generally oriented towards a goal. For example, if you are feeling hungry, the problem might be finding something to eat. Then seeking this way and that for realizing the goal. For example, if you are trying to decide what to eat, you might consider your dietary restrictions, the available food options, and the nutritional value of different foods. Then third, recall of previously observed fact. For example, you might compare the nutritional value of different food, then consider the cost of each option and think about how each option will make you feel. Then grouping these recalled facts into new patterns. Like you might decide to make a sandwich, or you will order online, or you may cook a meal from the scratch. Then inner speech movements and gestures. Like you might choose to make a sandwich because it is quick, easy, and it satisfies your hunger. All these activities may not be present in every act of thinking. In idle thinking, there may not be any particular goal. But in purposive thinking, there is always a goal. Sometimes thinking may be carried out without inner speech. But generally, when we think in order to solve a theoretical or a practical problem, The first four elements, that is the orientation towards the goal, seeking this way or that for realizing the goal, then recall of the previously observed fact and grouping this recalled fact. All these four elements are present in thinking. And finally, we may succeed in reaching the solution of the problem. And memory and imagination are involved in this thinking. Then thinking has purpose. It has two main goals: discovery of a new truth and invention of a new device. Discovery refers to the process of uncovering something that already exists but it is not yet known or understood. This can involve exploring new ideas, concepts, or phenomena and making connections between them. An example of thinking for discovery could be a scientist who observes a pattern in their experimental data and uses critical thinking to develop a hypothesis about why the pattern exists. For example, the discovery of DNA's double helix structure. Then, invention. It refers to the process of creating something new that did not exist before. This can involve using creativity and imagination to come up with novel solutions to problems or challenges. An example of thinking for invention could be an engineer who uses their knowledge and expertise to design a new product that addresses a specific need or improves upon the existing technology. For example, the invention of the internet. So, our thinking has a purpose. Another nature of thinking is the hindsight and foresight. The hindsight and foresight are two important aspects of thinking. It involves reflecting on past experience and anticipating the future possibilities. Hindsight thinking, it involves reflecting on the past to understand what happened and why. For example, after a sports team loses a game, the coach may review the footage of the game to identify the areas where the team could have performed better. This type of hindsight thinking can help the coach make adjustments to their strategy and prepare the team for future games. Then, foresight. Here, the foresight thinking involves anticipating the future possibilities and making decisions based on those predictions. For example, a business owner may use the foresight thinking to anticipate changes in the market and adjust their strategy accordingly. For example, if they see a trend towards online shopping, they may invest in e-commerce capabilities to stay competitive. Both the hindsight and the foresight thinking are important for making informed decisions and improving outcomes in a variety of contexts. Next is thinking involves abstraction. Abstraction is the process of simplifying complex information or ideas by focusing on the essential features or characteristics. Thinking often involves abstraction because it allows us to better understand and manipulate the complex concept. Let us see few examples. First one, we might create the concept of dogs to represent all the different breeds and types of the dog we encounter. So we simplify the complexity. Then, when we see a tree, we might abstract its essential features such as its shape and color to create the mental image of a tree. Then, mathematicians, they use abstract symbols such as x and y to represent the specific values of variables. This allows them to perform calculations and manipulate the equations more easily. By simplifying the complex information and ideas, the abstraction, it allows us to better understand and manipulate the world around us. Overt and covert thinking. Overt thinking refers to the conscious and observable mental process that are expressed through verbal or physical actions. The examples of overt thinking include speaking, writing, drawing, or performing other actions that reflect an individual's thoughts and ideas. The overthinking refers to thinking that is consciously aware and can be expressed through speech or actions. It involves actively processing information and making deliberate decisions. An example of overthinking could be a student solving a math problem by writing down each step of the process and showing their work. Another example of overthinking could be a person actively brainstorming ideas for a project. Then, covert thinking. It refers to the unconscious and internal mental process that are not directly observable. The overthinking was conscious, and here the covert thinking is unconscious. It occurs within an individual's mind. The covert thinking, the thinking that is not consciously aware and cannot be expressed through speech or actions. It involves unconscious processing of information and automatic responses. An example of covert thinking could be a person automatically reaching for their phone to check the time without consciously thinking about it. Another example can be a person automatically feeling anxious or nervous before a public speaking event without consciously thinking about the reason behind their emotions. For simply understanding, you can think like overt is open and covert is covered thinking. Both the overt and covert thinking play important role in human cognition. The overt thinking allows to communicate their thoughts and ideas to others, which is essential for learning. Now let's have a quick recap on what we have learned. We have learned the nature of thinking. What are the nature of thinking? Thinking is a series of symbolic process. It has steps, it has purpose. Hindsight and foresight thinking are there. Thinking involves abstraction, and overt and covert thinking are there. Hope you like this video. Please share and subscribe. Thank you and keep smiling.